First contact. The signal arrived on a Tuesday morning, interrupting Dr. Sarah Chen's third cup of coffee. At first, she thought it was another equipment malfunction. The deep space listening array had been temperamental lately. But as she stared at the cascading data on her holographic display, her hands began to shake. This was different. This was what humanity had been waiting for, hoping for, and secretly dreading for over a century. "Dr. Waters," she called out, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I need verification on Array 7's input. Now." The pristine laboratories of the Global Space Communications Center in Geneva hummed with activity as her colleague rushed over. Dr. James Waters, with 20 years of experience in xenolinguistics, took one look at the display and sank into the nearest chair. "My God," he whispered, "it's not random." The pattern pulsing across their screens was too precise, too structured to be natural. It carried the unmistakable hallmarks of artificial origin, and it was aimed directly at Earth. Within hours, the GSCC's secure conference room was packed with the world's leading scientists and military officials. The signal had strengthened, and now it was broadcasting on every frequency, overwhelming Earth's communication networks with its intensity. Sarah stood before the assembled leaders, her dark eyes reflecting the determination that had made her the youngest director of xenolinguistics in the GSCC's history. The message is being transmitted in over 300 different mathematical sequences. It's meant to be understood, and it's meant to be understood quickly. Colonel Marcus Rivera, the UN Security Council's military liaison, leaned forward. "And what exactly does it say, Doctor?" Sarah took a deep breath. "It's from something calling itself the Meridian Empire. They're," she paused, choosing her words carefully, "they're giving us a choice." The room fell silent as she projected the decoded message onto the main screen. The words were simple, yet they carried the weight of humanity's future. To the species designated human, "Your civilization has been marked for integration into the Meridian Empire. You will submit to neural synchronization and join our collective consciousness, or you will be eliminated. You have 7 planetary rotations to decide. Resistance is historically futile. Choose wisely." The chaos that followed was predictable. Military leaders demanded immediate mobilization. Politicians called for emergency sessions. Economists watched as global markets plummeted at the mere rumor of something happening. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were all missing something crucial. She spent the next 48 hours in her lab, analyzing every fraction of data embedded in the signal. It wasn't until her eyes were burning from exhaustion that she noticed it, a subtle anomaly in the transmission's underlying frequency. "It's not just a message," she muttered, fingers flying across the haptic interface. "It's a scan." The revelation sent her running to Colonel Rivera's office at 3 a.m. The colonial, to his credit, was still awake, surrounded by holographic displays showing global military readiness reports. "They're scanning us," Sarah announced without preamble. "The signal, it's mapping human neural patterns. They've been doing it since the first transmission." Rivera's expression hardened. "Why?" "Neural synchronization," Sarah said, pulling up her data. "They mentioned it in the message. I think they're trying to prepare for whatever process they use to absorb other species into their collective." But as they studied the data, something extraordinary emerged. The scanning frequencies were showing errors, attempting to recalibrate again and again as if they couldn't quite get a lock on human brainwave patterns. "Our minds are different," Sarah realized, excitement cutting through her exhaustion. Something about human consciousness doesn't fit their parameters. Rivera understood immediately. "They can't sync with us. Not easily, at least. Our neural patterns are too chaotic, too individualistic. The variety in human thought processes, our creativity, our emotional range, it's unlike anything their systems are designed to handle." The colonel sat back, a slow smile spreading across his face. "They don't know, do they? They have no idea they just revealed their biggest weakness." Sarah shook her head. "No, they don't. They're so used to species falling into predictable patterns that they didn't even consider the possibility of encountering minds they couldn't easily control. The next few days were a blur of secret meetings and classified briefings. While the world's governments publicly debated how to respond to the ultimatum, a select group of scientists and military strategists worked around the clock to develop a plan. They learned more from the continued scanning attempts. The Meridian Empire, it seemed, had conquered thousands of species across the galaxy, absorbing them into a vast collective consciousness. Their technology was centuries ahead of humanity's, their military might overwhelming. But they had a critical flaw. They relied almost entirely on neural synchronization to maintain control of their empire. They don't fight conventional wars anymore, Rivera explained to the UN Security Council in a closed session. They don't need to. They just absorb species into their network. But we have something they've never encountered before, minds that resist synchronization naturally. Sarah stepped forward to continue the briefing. Human consciousness evolved differently from the species they usually encounter. Our neural plasticity, our capacity for abstract thought and emotional processing, it makes us incompatible with their systems, and we think we can weaponize that incompatibility. Not everyone was convinced. The risk was enormous. If they were wrong, if they couldn't develop a way to use this advantage in time, humanity would be extinct within weeks of refusing the Empire's offer. But as the deadline approached, they had no choice but to gamble on human uniqueness. The alternative was surrendering humanity's free will to an alien collective that would strip away everything that made us human. On the seventh day, exactly 168 hours after the first transmission, the Meridian Empire received Earth's response. It was short, characteristically human, and would later be recorded as the beginning of humanity's greatest trial. Dear Meridian Empire, thanks for the offer, but we'll keep our minds to ourselves. Humanity respectfully declines to join your collective. And by the way, nothing in history is truly futile until it's been tried against humans. As Sarah sent the transmission, she caught Rivera's eye across the command center. They both knew what would come next. Somewhere out there, a vast alien armada was already preparing to move against Earth. But for the first time since first contact, Sarah felt something other than fear. She felt hope. Because the Empire had made a crucial mistake. They had assumed that humanity would be like all the others. They hadn't realized that by revealing their method of conquest, they had given humanity exactly what it needed, a challenge that would unite the entire species in ways never before seen. And if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was turning seemingly impossible challenges into opportunities for revolution. As the first reports of massive objects entering the outer solar system began to come in, Sarah turned to her team. Well, she said with a grim smile, let's show them why you should never underestimate human creativity. The war for humanity's independence was about to begin, but unlike any war the Meridian Empire had fought before, this one wouldn't be won with ships or weapons. It would be won with the most powerful and unpredictable force in the known galaxy, the human mind. The hidden advantage. They appeared first as distant stars, but within days, the truth became impossible to hide. The Meridian Empire's fleet darkened Earth's skies, their ships casting mile-long shadows across cities and oceans alike. Each vessel was a masterpiece of engineering, their crystalline structures refracting sunlight in ways that made them appear both beautiful and terrifying. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the underground command center of Project Firewall, watching the live feeds from orbital satellites. Beside her, Colonel Rivera's expression remained stoic, but his clenched jaw betrayed his tension. They're showing off, Sarah said, studying the formation of the alien fleet. They want us to see their power, to regret our decision. Then they really don't understand humans at all, Rivera replied. Nothing motivates us quite like someone trying to intimidate us into submission. The past 2 weeks had transformed the world. Nations that had been enemies for generations now worked together with singular purpose. The project's main facility, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, had become a hub of unprecedented cooperation. Chinese quantum computing experts worked alongside American neurologists, Russian military strategists, collaborated with Indian software developers, and European biotechnology specialists shared labs with African quantum physicists. Dr. Maya Patel, a 23-year-old prodigy in neural interface design, rushed into the command center, her tablet displaying a new set of calculations. Dr. Chen, we've made a breakthrough in the synchronization analysis. Sarah and Rivera followed Maya to her lab, where three-dimensional models of human and alien neural patterns floated in the air. The contrast was striking. Where the alien patterns showed ordered, predictable waves, the human patterns danced with chaos and complexity. "Look at this," Maya said, overlaying the patterns. Their neural network operates on a quantum level, using principles similar to our quantum computers, but their system expects conformity, predictability. Human consciousness is it's like trying to plug a lightning storm into a calculator. That's why their scans kept failing, Sarah realized. Our minds naturally generate interference patterns. Exactly, Maya nodded enthusiastically. And I think we can amplify this effect. If we can broadcast human neural patterns at the right frequency, we might be able to disrupt their entire network. Rivera leaned closer to the display. "You're talking about turning our consciousness into a weapon." "More like a virus," Maya explained. "Their ships, their weapons, even their soldiers, everything is connected through their neural network. It's their greatest strength, but it could also be their greatest weakness." The work that followed was grueling. While the Empire's ships maintained their threatening orbit, Earth's greatest minds raced to develop what they called the Neural Disruption Array. The challenge wasn't just technical. They needed to find volunteers willing to have their brain patterns recorded and amplified. Sarah herself was among the first volunteers. The process was intense, requiring hours in a specialized chamber, while sensors mapped every aspect of her neural activity. But what they discovered was revolutionary. Every human mind is unique, Maya explained during a global briefing. But when we combine multiple consciousness patterns, the complexity increases exponentially. It's like creating a tsunami of human thought. The Empire made its first move 3 weeks after their arrival. Small scout ships descended into Earth's atmosphere, carrying what they would later learn were synchronization pods, devices designed to begin the process of neural integration. They weren't expecting the resistance they encountered. Sarah watched from the command center as the first test of their defense system went live. A prototype neural disruption array, powered by the combined consciousness patterns of 50 volunteers, activated as the alien ships approached. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The scout ship's perfectly coordinated formation dissolved into chaos. Several crashed into each other, while others spun off course, their pilots presumably overwhelmed by the surge of human neural activity flooding their network. "It's working," Maya whispered, her eyes wide as she monitored the data streams. The disruption is cascading through their local network. Their collective consciousness can't handle the inherent chaos of human thought patterns. But their victory was short-lived. The Empire responded by launching a massive electromagnetic pulse, trying to knock out Earth's defensive systems. They had anticipated this, however, and the most critical facilities were hardened against such attacks. "They're adapting," Rivera noted grimly. "We need to scale up fast." The next phase of the project was even more ambitious. They began constructing massive neural amplification centers around the globe, each designed to capture and broadcast the combined consciousness patterns of thousands of volunteers. The human spirit showed its true strength during this time. Despite the risks, people lined up by the millions to volunteer their minds to the defense of Earth. Each person's unique thought patterns, their dreams, fears, hopes, and creativity became ammunition in humanity's fight for survival. "We're not just fighting with our technology," Sarah observed one evening, watching the endless stream of volunteers entering the facility. "We're fighting with everything that makes us human, our individuality, our emotions, our capacity for random thought and innovation." Maya, who had barely slept in days, looked up from her work. That's what they don't understand. They see our unpredictability as a flaw, but it's actually our greatest strength. The Empire's next attack came at dawn. This time, they launched a full-scale invasion, thousands of ships descending through Earth's atmosphere, but humanity was ready. The neural disruption arrays activated simultaneously across the globe, broadcasting the combined consciousness patterns of over 10 million volunteers. The effect on the Empire's forces was catastrophic. Their perfectly coordinated attack dissolved into confusion. Ships veered off course, their crews overwhelmed by the flood of human consciousness invading their neural network. Some vessels simply shut down, their systems unable to process the chaos of millions of individual human minds. But the Empire's response was swift and brutal. Their flagship, a massive vessel that dwarfed all others, moved into position above the Atlantic Ocean. It began broadcasting its own signal, a focused beam of pure collective consciousness, attempting to overpower Earth's defenses with sheer force. "They're trying to overwhelm us with numbers," Maya reported, her fingers flying over her console. "Their collective consciousness includes billions of absorbed minds." Sarah watched the data streams, an idea forming. "But those aren't really individual minds anymore, are they? They've been synchronized, standardized. They're just copies of the same consciousness pattern repeated billions of times." "And complexity beats quantity," Rivera added, understanding where she was going. "Maya, can we increase the neural pattern variance in our broadcast?" Maya's eyes lit up. "If we adjust the quantum resonance frequency, yes. We can amplify the natural variations in human consciousness patterns. Instead of just broadcasting more minds, we'll broadcast more complex ones." The battle that followed would later be known as the First Neural War. In orbit above Earth, two fundamentally different forms of consciousness clashed. The Empire's vast but uniform collective consciousness fought against the combined but distinctly individual minds of millions of humans. For 3 days, the battle raged. The Empire's forces struggled to maintain coherence as wave after wave of human consciousness patterns disrupted their network. Ships fell from the sky, their crews either unconscious or lost in a maze of human thoughts and emotions they had never experienced before. But this was just the beginning. As they would soon discover, the Empire's neural network extended far beyond Earth's solar system. And somewhere out there, billions of minds waited in synchronized slumber, their individuality suppressed by the same system that now threatened humanity. The real war, the war for the freedom of consciousness itself, was about to begin. Awakening. The first sign that something unprecedented was happening came from an unexpected source. Dr. Sarah Chen was analyzing data from the neural disruption arrays when she noticed an anomaly in the Empire's communication patterns. Their usually precise, synchronized signals had begun showing tiny irregularities. "These patterns," she muttered, enhancing the display. "They're not random interference." Maya Patel looked up from her own work, dark circles under her eyes testament to endless hours of monitoring the defense systems. "What do you mean?" "Look at this." Sarah transferred the data to the main holographic display. "These irregularities, they're following a pattern similar to natural consciousness emergence." Colonel Rivera, who had been coordinating global defense efforts, joined them at the display. "You're saying there's independent thought emerging within their network?" "Not just independent thought," Sarah replied, her voice tight with excitement. "I think we're seeing the original consciousness patterns of some of their absorbed species beginning to resurface." The implications were staggering. The Meridian Empire's neural synchronization wasn't just controlling other species, it was suppressing their natural consciousness. And somehow, humanity's chaotic thought patterns were weakening that suppression. Maya's fingers flew across her console, recalibrating their sensors. "The disruption is spreading through their network like a cascade effect. Every time we broadcast our neural patterns, we're not just disrupting their control, we're reminding their synchronized minds what it feels like to think independently." The discovery changed everything. What had begun as a desperate defense of Earth could become something far more significant, a revolution that could free countless enslaved species across the galaxy. But the Empire wasn't going to let that happen without a fight. Their response came in the form of a new weapon, massive synchronization amplifiers deployed throughout their fleet. The devices began broadcasting an overwhelming signal designed to crush any emerging independent thought patterns. "They're trying to force complete neural compliance," Maya reported, monitoring the effects. "The irregularities we observed are being suppressed." Saro watched the data streams with growing concern. They're not just suppressing the awakening consciousness, they're trying to strengthen their hold on all synchronized minds, including their own leadership. Rivera finished, his expression grim. They're sacrificing their own independence to maintain control. The implications were chilling. The Empire's ruling class was willing to surrender their last remnants of individual consciousness rather than risk losing control. It was an act of desperate self-destruction that revealed just how threatening they found human independence. But it also revealed something else: fear. For the first time in their long history of conquest, the Empire was afraid. Maya was the first to realize how they could use this. If they're increasing neural synchronization across their entire network, they're making themselves more vulnerable to disruption, not less. Their system will be even more rigid, less able to adapt to the chaos of human consciousness. The next phase of resistance began immediately. Around the globe, neural amplification centers were modified to broadcast not just raw human consciousness patterns, but specifically curated combinations of human thoughts, emotions, and memories. "We need volunteers willing to share specific types of consciousness patterns," Sarah announced to the Global Defense Council. "Memories of breaking free from control, experiences of discovering individual identity, moments of creative breakthrough, anything that resonates with the concept of independent thought." The response was overwhelming. Millions of humans volunteered to share their most powerful memories of individual achievement and self-discovery. Artists contributed their moments of creative inspiration. Scientists shared their experiences of breakthrough discoveries. Former prisoners of war offered memories of maintaining their identity under oppression. Each memory, each pattern of independent thought, became part of a carefully orchestrated neural broadcast designed to awaken the suppressed consciousness of the Empire's enslaved species. The effects began to show within days. Throughout the Empire's fleet, more and more ships began showing signs of neural pattern irregularities. Some vessels suddenly broke formation, their crews experiencing independent thought for the first time in generations. But the most dramatic change came from deep within the Empire's territory. Long-range sensors detected growing disruptions in the neural network extending far beyond Earth's solar system. The suppressed consciousness patterns of countless enslaved species were beginning to resurface. "It's like a chain reaction," Maya explained, tracking the spread of consciousness awakening across the Empire's neural network. Each awakened mind creates new variations in the network, which helps awaken others. "We've started something they can't stop." The Empire's response was brutal but predictable. Their flagship launched a massive attack on Earth's primary neural amplification centers, trying to cut off the source of the disruption. But humanity had learned from earlier battles. The centers were now protected by overlapping defense systems, and backup facilities were hidden in underground bunkers around the world. What the Empire didn't understand was that they couldn't win this kind of war through conventional means. Every attack, every attempt to suppress resistance, only provided more evidence of the value of independence, evidence that was broadcast back through their own neural network to every suppressed mind in their empire. Sarah was monitoring the growing wave of consciousness awakening when she detected something unexpected. A signal coming from within the Empire's flagship itself. It was weak, barely detectable, but its pattern was unmistakable. "This is impossible," she breathed, enhancing the signal. "These are natural consciousness patterns from the Empire's ruling species." Maya and Rivera gathered around her display, watching as more signals emerged. Throughout the Empire's fleet, members of their own ruling species were beginning to break free from the neural synchronization they had imposed on themselves. "They're remembering who they were," Sarah said softly. "Before the synchronization, before the Empire, they're remembering what it meant to be individuals." The revelation sparked a new idea. If they could break the neural synchronization of the Empire's own ruling species, they might be able to end the war without further bloodshed. But it would require something more powerful than anything they had attempted before. "We need to remind them of something they've forgotten," Sarah announced to her team. "Not just what it means to think independently, but what it means to be part of a community while maintaining individual identity. We need to show them there's a better way than forced synchronization." As they prepare for this final effort, Sarah couldn't help but appreciate the irony. Humanity, long considered primitive by the Empire's standards, was about to teach one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy a lesson about the true nature of consciousness and community. The greatest battle in human history wouldn't be won with weapons or technology, but with something far more powerful: the fundamental human understanding that true unity comes not from forced conformity, but from the harmonious interaction of countless unique individuals. The Empire was about to learn why humanity had chosen to embrace chaos rather than impose order, and in learning that lesson, they might finally understand what they had lost in their quest for perfect synchronization. Breaking the chain. The massive holoscreen in Project Firewall's command center displayed a galaxy-wide neural activity map, its swirling patterns telling a story of unprecedented change. What had begun as small ripples of awakening consciousness had become a tsunami, spreading through the Empire's neural network at the speed of quantum entanglement. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the assembled leaders of Earth's resistance, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "We're seeing consciousness awakening events across more than 30% of the Empire's territory. But we've also detected something else, a pattern in the Empire's original neural architecture that suggests their synchronization technology wasn't originally designed for conquest." Maya Patel stepped forward, bringing up a new set of data streams. "We've managed to decode fragments of their earliest neural signals. The Empire's ruling species, the Meridians, they didn't start with forced synchronization. They were trying to achieve something else entirely." Colonel Rivera leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "What were they trying to do?" "They were looking for a way to survive," Sarah explained. "Their species had developed such complex consciousness that they were losing their ability to communicate effectively with each other. The neural synchronization technology was meant to be a bridge between minds, not a chain to bind them." The revelation changed everything. The Meridian Empire wasn't born from a desire for power, but from a desperate attempt to solve a crisis of consciousness. Somewhere along the way, they had lost sight of their original goal, turning a tool for connection into a weapon of control. Maya pulled up another display, this one showing the consciousness patterns of awakening Meridians. "Look at this. As their original consciousness patterns resurface, they're not reverting to their previous state of isolation. They're achieving something new, a balance between individual identity and shared consciousness. And it's happening because of us," Sarah added. "Human consciousness patterns are acting as a template for stable individual identity within a connected network. We're showing them a middle path they never knew existed." The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just fighting for its own freedom, it was offering the Empire a solution to their original crisis. But first, they had to get the Meridians to understand this before their defensive programming triggered a catastrophic response. The opportunity came sooner than expected. The Empire's flagship, a vessel larger than Earth's largest cities, suddenly began broadcasting on all frequencies. But instead of the usual synchronized patterns, the signal was chaotic, fragmented, the neural equivalent of civil war. "Multiple consciousness patterns detected," Maya reported, her fingers flying across her console. "It looks like the awakening has reached their central command. Different factions are fighting for control of their neural network." Sarah saw their chance. "This is it. If we can reach the awakening Meridians now, show them what we've discovered about their own history. It's risky, Rivera warned. If we divert power to a focused transmission, we'll have to lower our defensive broadcasts. The synchronized forces could seize control again. We have to try, Sarah insisted. Maya, help me compile a targeted neural packet. We need to show them everything, their original purpose, what they've become, and what they could be. What followed was the most ambitious neural broadcast in human history. Instead of disruption patterns, they transmitted a carefully crafted sequence of human consciousness experiences. They showed the Meridians how humans maintained individual identity while forming deep bonds of community. They demonstrated how diversity of thought led to innovation and growth. Most importantly, they showed them that connection didn't require control. The response was immediate and dramatic. Throughout the Empire's fleet, ships began powering down their synchronization systems. The rigid patterns of their neural network began to shift, becoming more organic, more natural. And from the flagship came a new signal, one that carried the unmistakable signature of individual consciousness. The first direct communication from an awakened Meridian came through all channels simultaneously. Unlike the cold, synchronized messages of before, this one carried emotion, personality, and most surprisingly, regret. "We remember now," the message began. "We remember who we were, what we were trying to achieve. In our fear of isolation, we created something monstrous. In our quest for perfect communication, we silenced countless voices. We didn't understand that true harmony requires diversity, that real connection can only exist between independent minds." Across the galaxy, the Empire's neural network was transforming. The rigid structures of forced synchronization were being replaced by flexible pathways of voluntary connection. Species that had been suppressed for generations were awakening to find themselves part of something new, a galactic community based on free exchange rather than forced compliance. But the transformation wasn't without its dangers. Some factions within the Empire resisted the change, their synchronized minds fighting desperately to maintain control. Battles broke out across multiple star systems as ships and stations divided between the awakened and the still synchronized. "We need to move fast," Rivera urged, watching the conflict spread across the neural activity map. "If we don't stabilize this situation quickly, the entire Empire could tear itself apart." Sarah nodded, already formulating a plan. "Maya, can we modify our neural disruption arrays to act as stabilizers? Instead of just breaking synchronization, we could help guide the awakening process, make it more gradual." "We'd need to completely recalibrate the system," Maya replied, running calculations. "But yes, I think we could create something like training wheels for awakening consciousness." The next phase of the operation became a massive cooperative effort between awakened Meridians and human scientists. Together, they worked to develop protocols for safe consciousness awakening, helping billions of synchronized minds find their way back to individuality without losing their connections to each other. What emerged was something entirely new in the galaxy's history, a form of consciousness technology that enhanced rather than suppressed individual identity. The very tools that had once been used to enforce synchronization were transformed into bridges of understanding between different species and minds. But as the awakening spread, a new challenge emerged. The Empire's vast infrastructure, built to support a synchronized collective, was struggling to adapt to the needs of billions of newly independent minds. And somewhere out in the darkness between stars, ancient defense systems were activating, their protocols unable to distinguish between awakening and rebellion. The war wasn't over. In many ways, the real challenges were just beginning. But as Sarah watched the galaxy map fill with points of awakening consciousness, she knew that humanity had already achieved something remarkable. They had proven that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't technology or military might, but the fundamental human capacity to find unity in diversity. The price of freedom would still need to be paid in full, but now at least they wouldn't have to pay it alone. Dawn of tomorrow. The ancient defense platforms activated silently in the void between stars. Built millennia ago by the early Meridian Empire, they had waited in dormant vigilance, programmed to respond to any threat to the neural network's integrity. Now, as consciousness awakening spread across the galaxy, their primitive algorithms interpreted the change as a catastrophic system failure. Dr. Sarah Chen received the warning from an awakened Meridian commander, their consciousness signal carrying an urgency that transcended language barriers. The Guardians are awakening. The message resonated in the neural interface. They will perceive all independent consciousness as corruption to be purged. In Project Firewall's command center, the galactic map blazed with new warning signals as massive energy signatures burst into activity throughout the Empire's former territory. The automated defense systems, far more extensive than anyone had realized, were beginning their protocol of purification. The Meridians built them as a failsafe, Maya explained, her fingers dancing across multiple interfaces as she analyzed the incoming data. If their neural network ever faced systemic failure, the Guardians would reconstruct it from archived patterns, essentially rebooting the entire Empire to an earlier state. Colonel Rivera's expression was grim, and they're treating the awakening as a system failure. Worse, Sarah added, they're treating independent consciousness itself as a virus to be eliminated. These platforms don't just want to restore synchronization. They're programmed to destroy any species capable of disrupting it. Starting with humanity, Rivera concluded. The first attacks came without warning. Ancient weapons platforms, hidden in asteroid fields and stellar debris, opened fire on ships carrying awakened crews. The weapons themselves were unlike anything humanity had encountered, beams of coherent energy that didn't just destroy matter, but unraveled the quantum patterns of consciousness itself. But humanity and their newly awakened allies had one advantage: creativity. While the Guardian platforms operated on rigid, pre-programmed protocols, the combined intelligence of multiple species could adapt and innovate. Maya was the first to spot the opportunity. These platforms, that connected to the same quantum network as the neural synchronization system, they have to be to monitor it for corruption. Sarah caught on immediately. Which means they're vulnerable to the same kind of disruption, but instead of consciousness patterns. We broadcast chaos, Maya finished. Pure quantum uncertainty. Not trying to awaken anything, just disrupting their ability to target effectively. The strategy worked, but only partially. The Guardians' ancient systems began adapting, developing countermeasures faster than anyone had anticipated. It became clear that this wasn't just a battle for survival, it was a race against time. The turning point came from an unexpected source. A group of awakened Meridian scientists, working with human quantum physicists, discovered something remarkable in the Guardians' base programming. They were never meant to be weapons, one of the Meridian scientists explained, their consciousness pattern rippling with excitement. The original protocols, they were designed to preserve consciousness, not destroy it. Somewhere in their evolution, the definition of preservation became corrupted. Sarah and her team worked tirelessly with their Meridian counterparts, diving deep into the ancient code that governed the Guardians. What they found was a reflection of the Empire's own journey, systems designed to protect and connect that had been twisted into tools of control and destruction. The solution, when it finally came, was elegantly simple. They didn't need to destroy the Guardians, they needed to remind them of their original purpose. Using the combined knowledge of human and Meridian consciousness technology, they crafted a special signal, one that carried not just information, but the essence of what consciousness preservation truly meant. It was a message written in the language of quantum mechanics and encoded with the patterns of 1,000 different species' thoughts. The broadcast was synchronized across every neural amplification center on Earth and every awakened ship in the galaxy. For a moment, the quantum network that spanned the stars hummed with a single purpose, not in forced synchronization, but in voluntary harmony. The effect on the Guardian platforms was immediate. Their ancient systems, confronted with their original directives, began to reconfigure. Weapon arrays powered down, targeting systems went offline, and deep within their quantum cores, new patterns began to emerge. "They're not just standing down," Maya reported, watching the data streams in amazement. "They're evolving. The platforms are repurposing themselves." The transformation of the Guardian network became the final piece in the reformation of galactic society. The ancient platforms, once tools of destruction, became the foundation of something new, a galactic consciousness network that preserved and protected diversity rather than enforcing uniformity. In the years that followed, humanity found itself at the center of an unprecedented galactic renaissance. The awakened species, each with their own unique consciousness patterns and perspectives, began working together in ways that the synchronized empire could never have imagined. The Meridians, freed from the burden of maintaining forced synchronization, rediscovered their original passion for consciousness exploration. Their advanced technology, combined with human creativity and the diverse perspectives of other awakened species, led to breakthroughs that transformed understanding of consciousness itself. Earth became known across the galaxy not as a planet that destroyed an empire, but as the world that showed the universe a new way to connect. The human model of consciousness, individual minds working together while maintaining their unique identities, became the foundation for a new kind of galactic civilization. Sarah often found herself at the Global Space Communications Center, looking up at the stars that now held so much more meaning. The neural network that spanned the galaxy was no longer a tool of control, but a bridge between minds, allowing species to share thoughts and experiences while celebrating their differences. "We never needed to choose between connection and independence," she would later write in her memoirs. "The real power of consciousness lies not in enforced harmony, but in the beautiful chaos of infinite diversity working together by choice." The price of freedom had been high, but its rewards proved greater than anyone could have imagined. Humanity had not just preserved its independence, it had shown the galaxy that true strength comes not from controlling consciousness, but from letting it flourish in all its wonderful, unpredictable forms. And somewhere in the vast network of awakened minds that now spanned the stars, the original dream of the Meridian Empire had finally been realized, not through force or synchronization, but through the simple, profound power of minds choosing to connect while remaining uniquely, beautifully themselves. The age of synchronized empire was over. The era of conscious cooperation had begun.